Hello and welcome to a new Pick a Card reading. In today's reading, we are receiving a message meant to find you. We are leaving the door open, we are leaving the table open for Spirit to share whatever you are meant to hear at this time. This could be a confirmation, this could be a reminder. In any case, we are open to hearing whatever message you need to hear at this time. I'm keeping it a little bit open because I was gone for a couple weeks. Some of you have noticed, some of you have reached out. And first of all, I do want to say if you only follow me on YouTube, you should check out the description below and go follow me on Instagram as well as on TikTok because I post way more frequently on those two platforms. I just don't always have the time to do pick-a-cards, even though I love doing them. And I've been trying to do them on a weekly basis. However, last week was my birthday. And the week leading up to that and the week after that was really jam-packed. And so that's why I've been gone for a little bit when it comes to YouTube. But I have been keeping up with those other platforms, so go follow me on there as well. Now let's get to your reading. This is a message meant to find you. I have prepared 3 groups, group 1, group 2, group 3, and I was out in the backyard for a minute earlier and I collected these little fellows to accompany us in this reading. So let me show you. Let's start off with group 1. There's this little ring that I used underneath just to prop it up. This is your teeny tiny flower. Look at her. She's adorable. Your teeny tiny flower for group 1. You know what? I'm also going to cut the deck just to give you an idea of what it looks like. This is, I mean, these are some of my go-to decks, but still we're going to cut it just so you can get a feel, an idea. We have the Page of Cups. This is a retro deck. This is the Pope Tarot. Now we're going to put this buddy right back there. And then group 2. Look at this. It looks like not that much at first, and it's going to be really difficult to show you, but look at. These are like teeny tiny white daisy flowers. I don't know what they are. If any of you know what any of these plants are, please share in the comments. But look at how cute these are. They're so tiny. That is group 2, and this is your deck. This is the Tarot of 1001 Nights. I think that's what it's called. And we have the 2 of Cups here. Beautiful illustration on this deck. That is group 2. Oops. This is a very slippery deck. We're going to put these cute little flowers right back on top, if they would like to stay. Okay, and then group 3, look at this huge clover I found. Maybe if we could focus, there we go. It's already looking a little sad. Also, I'm not a huge fan of killing plants, but my backyard, which is not mine, there's a lot of, like every 2 weeks, everything gets chopped by yard maintenance, so I'm really just giving them a moment of appreciation here. There we go, that is group 3, and this is your deck. Let's cut it. Ooh, the Tower. Don't let that scare you off. This is really just so you can see the illustration. We shall see what comes out during the reading. Don't let that scare you off though, especially with this beautiful huge clover. Tower is not always negative. Okay, so those are 3 groups, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to give you a moment to zone in or zone out, whichever you need, in order to confidently choose your group. Timestamps are in the description below, and I will meet you at your reading. Again, we are receiving, we are opening ourselves up to a message that you need to hear today, okay? Hi group 1, this is your reading. If you chose this Adorable, teeny, tiny, little flower. Look at it. I don't know what it is. You let me know if you do know. I'm going to set that down right there. And you know what? I'm just going to put on the ring. And then we're going to get right into it. So we are looking for a message that you need to hear at this time. Again, that can serve as confirmation. That can serve as... what's the other word I'm looking for? A reminder. It can serve as a warning as well, depending on what comes out, right? So let's take a look. So what I want to do first, I'm gonna flip this. What I want to do first is I'm gonna get a card for your current energy. For group 1, what is their current energy? Ooh, you know what? I will take it just the way it came out. We have the Temperance card along with the Wheel of Fortune. Okay. So it feels like you're trying to weather a storm, like you're trying to maintain balance within a strong circumstance of uncertainty. Like there's a lot of movement, possibly a lot of shifts happening around you, and you're really doing your best trying to remain calm, trying to remain centered. Now, what do you need to hear at this time? We have the Eight of Wands. Ooh, we have the Judgment card. Immediately I'm getting that you may have too many sticks in the fire. Is that, there's some kind of expression like that, right? There's too many cooks in the kitchen, but there's also too many fires in the oven. What is, I'm just butchering it now. Too many, I don't know, but there's too many of it. There might be a need to kind of slim down the area of attention. We have the High Priestess, interesting. Okay, we have the Five of Wands at the bottom of the deck right now. So yeah, what I'm getting so far is that there's, I feel like there's a lot of things that you're attempting to all keep under control. That you're attempting to all, like, there's just like a lot of little fires that you're trying to keep stoked, and you're just like running from one to another. Like I said, there's a very big emphasis on trying to remain in control, but not necessarily in like in a desperate way. With this Temperance card, it does indicate that we are kind of shifting with the flow. So I'm not concerned about that, but within this message for you, it is a reminder to let go of the things that you can't control, but I think you're good on that. But also let go of the things that just aren't necessary at this time, that aren't fully conducive. Like I do get the sense with this Five of Wands that there's a tendency here to try and make something fit when it doesn't quite fit, to try and make something happen when it's not quite easily happening, right? There's some sort of struggle here, and with this High Priestess, it does indicate that you know that it is a struggle that is not quite worth it. So there are certain things that we can let go. However, I do feel like it's like the major things that we will still accomplish. So what I'm thinking of is compromise. Compromise in favor of preserving energy. I'm seeing like an imagery of like blueprints, and think about like I feel like this is a message that just came through in a recent reading as well, but I have to go with whatever comes up. I'm seeing like blueprints, and it's giving me this idea of having lavish ideas for something that you want to build, And like the base structure is going to be the same, but it won't quite have the same facade, or it won't quite look the way that you first conceptualized it, right? But the base, like the cornerstones, are still going to be the same. But there is a little bit of slimming down that we have to do in terms of some kind of, there's some kind of need to be flexible with this. Yeah, we cannot hold on to, like, this is the idea of holding on to like every single demand. There's some kind of need for negotiation, for slimming down, for amending some kind of expectations. And the thing is that I think you're pretty resolute in your energy of like, no, I can weather this, I can manage this. And so you think like, I can make it to the end of this without giving up any kind of, without giving into any sort of compromise. Like, I can resolve this, I can get through this without losing any of the demands or the expectations that I have. And this is telling us that there is a need to not let, this is like the idea of not letting the small stuff hold up an entire contract. And this is very interesting, the way that this is coming out. For some reason, I'm thinking of like a prenup, for example. It's just a metaphor, but still, there's like this conversation between two parties that want to come into union for very like emotional and romantic reasons, typically. And when there's a prenup in place, it becomes very theoretical. It becomes very analytical and material. And so there's this idea to not let the small things, you know, to not let that cloud the reason why we're pursuing this in the first place. And that also has to do with, if this is some kind of attempt to find a resolution within a relationship, within a friendship, within some kind of connection, like between two family members, because I could see how that would be the case, that it's like this this idea of pick your battles, right? Not everything is worth rehashing, but you do want to make sure that you're on the same page about the big things. Give me a card for this Judgment card. Ooh, look at that. I'm going to take these just as they came out with the Ace of Cups. See, that is exactly what I was just saying, where it's like we have to keep in mind the bigger picture, which does indicate like, what is it that we're truly emotionally invested in when it comes to this matter, right? And then we do have to employ a certain attitude of like, I know what is important and I know what is worth fighting for, but this is very much giving pick your battles. Pick your battles. Yeah, the Nine of Pentacles is at the bottom of the deck. This is not giving in. And compromise is not about giving in. It's about finding a way to resolve things in a way that addresses everyone's concerns, right? Or the majority of their concerns. And so this isn't about like just blindly giving in and giving up, especially not on boundaries, especially not on material possessions, but it is about allowing room for compromise because of the underlying reason to compromise, which has to do with this Ace of Cups, which has to do because this is a desire to come into union with an agreement that helps support something that you are really emotionally invested in. So again, whether that is, you know, resolving a conflict within a friendship, within a relationship, between family members, or whether this has to do with a contract around work. Like there are certain things where it's like, you know, you can't go full force on every point of some kind of contract. Like there's something where we're going to have to make, we're going to have to take some concessions. I think that's the right way to say it. There are some areas where we're just going to have to compromise. That's coming through a lot. And what is your energy at the end of this? We have the Sun. Yeah, you're going to feel really good about how you handled this. And look, the Nine of Pentacles is still at the bottom of the deck because you're going to feel like, yeah, I stood my ground, but also I wasn't like, I wasn't unmanageable. I don't know why it's coming out that way. Unreasonable, like I wasn't unreasonable and I stood my ground and I was, you know, we figured this out because I knew that it was worth figuring out. And that's what's really coming through a lot, is that whatever this is, there's really a lot of reason to keep trying, to keep to keep showing up at the negotiation. And I don't know why this is coming through a lot. I mean, Venus just moved into Libra, and Libra is all about contracts. So when it comes to love matters right now, it could be that a lot of things are feeling like we're renegotiating terms around agreements, right? Let's get some dice on this. We have the 11th house, we have Sagittarius, and then we have Uranus energy. Yes, we're trying to expand the idea of what's fair and possible. Like we're really kind of demanding more, but for good reason. Like we're definitely so the 11th house is the house of hopes, dreams, and higher aspirations, but it's also the house of friendships and social networks. And so we are like driving for more. We are aiming higher, especially with that Sagittarius energy. We are kind of leveling up the idea of what we think is appropriate. So when it comes to work, this could definitely have to do with like demanding a raise or a promotion or something like that, right? Where perhaps the real life implications of your job situation, there might not be all of the material resources to accommodate what you actually deserve. So there are, again, some concessions that we have to make for the greater good with this Uranus energy. But it also indicates that there is still like a recognition around like, okay, we figured this out and we came to an agreement that really addresses everybody's needs and desires. And maybe moving forward, there is more room for growth at a later point in time. So yeah, the idea of not being so nitpicky about every point, but keeping in mind of what is really worth fighting for at this point in time, and what is a battle that doesn't, even if you win it, it doesn't help you, right? It's just, it becomes just a matter of principle at that point in time. Very interesting. This feels very, I mean, we're talking like agreements, negotiation. This feels very legal, but it doesn't have to be. It can also just be the way that we are trying to regain some kind of balance within a situation or a relationship. And you're doing that because the time is right. You are seeing an opportunity of like, you know what, now is my time. Now is my time to ask. And I think that's very common, right? Where people, they kind of collect. It happens a lot, whether that is at your work or whether that is within relationships and friendships. Sometimes we don't want to make a fuss about just every little thing, so we start collecting them. And then when we see an opportunity to like voice some frustrations, then it's like, and also you did this, and also this, and also this, and I've been meaning to tell you about, oops, see what happens? It like, this gets all jumbled up. When you get really passionate and into that, and all of a sudden you're like, just dumping on someone, and like telling them all the like the case that you've been building against them, it gets all jumbled up, because it's like, wait, do you even want to fix this? Like it can get pretty messy, right? And so what this reading is telling us is that instead of being like, and then this, and then this, and then this, we want to focus on, okay, let's not nitpick, but let's take a look at what's the root cause of this. What desires or needs are not being met, and how can we make sure that we address them? Okay. All right, let's get you some oracle cards. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, I kind of want to, so I got, for my birthday, I treated myself to a new tarot deck, and it's super interesting, and I'm still getting to know it more. So I'm not really sure how this is gonna go, but I wanted to get 3 cards on specifically a reminder that you need to hear. What is a reminder that group 1 needs to be made aware of? What is a reminder that group 1 needs? We have the Fool. Oh, look at that. We have the Magician. Look at all these major arcana cards. And then we have the Hermit. And I love how this reminder is definitely, like, the way the cards are coming out totally aligns with the cards underneath it. So the Fool card with the Magician along with the Hermit, it's reminding us that more things are possible if we are more in tune with ourselves and what it is that we actually desire. Because sometimes, I'm thinking of one of the Oracle decks has this card that says Distorted Desires, because sometimes we think we want all of these little things addressed, but really what it all boils down to, the essence of all of those singular complaints really boils down to, I'm not feeling seen, I'm not feeling heard. And so this Fool card is basically, especially with this situation, it feels like you've been steeping in it for a while. And when you expose someone, you actually start communicating with someone like, hey, this is what I've been feeling, this is what I've been thinking. You've been steeping in it for a long time. And so for you, it makes sense. But for another person, it might be like, whoa, what? Where is this coming from, right? And so this Fool card is reminding us to really kind of keep a beginner's mindset, keep an open mindset of what even is possible when we really show up authentically, but especially with this Magician card, right? What are we able to create if we show up authentically? It's really important to remember that when we show up authentically, we are kind of like creating a whole new dynamic. Instead of showing up in a way that protects the others or ourselves from judgment, and when we show up truly with our needs and desires, the reason that we protect ourselves and show up inauthentically is because we are afraid of rejection, because we are afraid that our needs will not be met. So we kind of put up a wall to not even let our real needs be known so that we don't have to deal with that kind of rejection in the first place. And so this is really talking about, what if you were to express your needs and they actually got addressed? What if you were to actually have this faith that it's safe to show up authentically? And even if, I mean, I see it going very well for you, right? We had the 9 of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck. We have the Sun card for you. I see it going very well, but let's talk worst case scenario. You show up authentically with your needs and your desires and your hurts. Worst case scenario is you do get judged, you do get rejected, but then you know not to invest in that situation, in that connection, in that relationship anymore. And so that frees you in a sense, even if it is worst case scenario, it frees you from upholding something that doesn't serve you, right? Wow, this got really deep. Love that for us. Okay, let's get you some oracle cards now. Can we get one for group one? Is there any blind spots we need to be aware of when it comes to this situation, when it comes to this message? Any blind spots? Radical self-love. We can only receive love to the extent that we unconditionally love and live the truth of ourselves. And so again, we're talking about really authentically showing up in a place or in a moment of negotiation. Like if there is, because it does seem like there's an opportunity, right? There's a window of opportunity for you to really kind of unload. And what this reading is saying is to not focus on the little things, because the little things are really just like, they're like extensions of the core issue that needs to be addressed. And the more you focus on really truly addressing that and authentically reflecting on what the core issue is, the better. It's difficult. It's not easy work to do that, but the better you will feel, because you will feel like not only that you showed up for yourself, you advocated for yourself, but also that you are actually giving people or situations a real opportunity to meet you where you need to be met. Oh my God, I'm loving this reading. I hope you are enjoying it, because damn, it's a good reading. If I may say so myself, it is flowing. I hope the others are like this too. This is a very clear message. Okay, let's get a moon card for you for group one. Let's get a moon card. Ooh, it's this one. We have fear. Yep. That fear, there's some sort of fear that, and see, that's the thing. With this Eight of Wands, look at, we have assessing at the bottom of the deck. With this Eight of Wands, I was talking about like not focusing on the little things. And I do think that sometimes it's easier for us to harp on the little things than to actually address the major underlying issues, than to actually really make ourselves vulnerable to, hey, I'm really hurt because of this and this. So what I'm getting is, you know how sometimes, especially within like romantic relationships, sometimes you just don't want to open a certain can of worms, but it's still kind of, there's still some kind of irritant that keeps coming up. And that's when we get these passive aggressive displays of conflict, right? When it's like, you know, somebody's slamming the cupboards and it's like, are you good? Yeah, I'm good. Everything's fine. It's like, well, it doesn't seem like you're fine, because we might have a hard time saying, you know what, like there's this thing that keeps happening within this relationship that's making me feel insecure, and we need to address it. It's easier to point our finger and be like, you're always doing this and this and this, instead of really addressing the underlying issue of, when you do things like that, it makes me feel insecure within this connection, right? So there is a real need to be really honest with yourself about the underlying issues. And I keep doing like the same motion when I'm talking about this, because I'm seeing an imagery of like and I'm not sure actually what it is that I'm seeing, but it kind of looks like a well, but it's kind of like an underground well, where it's like, you know, some kind of well that collects like rainwater perhaps, where it's like it's seeping through the ground and it's all collecting in this well that is way far underground. And so all of these little things are the water trickling down, but it's collecting in like a big basin underground. And it's like, okay, what is that basin made of? It's typically made of some sort of fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. There are certain things that is kind of collecting towards. And that if we tap into that and are just more aware of it, we can show up differently when it comes to negotiations. Okay, let's get you an aspect card. What is an energy that group one should embrace moving forward? We have healer. So we are definitely trying to focus on healing a situation, healing a connection, healing some kind of irritation instead of opening the wound more, right? Instead of ignoring it and letting the wound get infected, this is definitely about truly assessing it and addressing it in a way that allows for real healing and not just slapping a band-aid on some kind of situation. And you are going to feel so much better and more confident having gone through this process. In the aftermath, you're going to feel like, okay, I really did what I was supposed to do. Like, I really addressed the situation the way I was supposed to. And that's why we have this High Priestess along with the Strength card here as well. It's not easy to address a situation like that head on, but the energies that have been coming out really talk a lot about you truly advocating for yourself instead of just soothing, or instead of just pacifying yourself, right? It's like, no, we really need to stand up for ourselves. We really need to address this. And again, we're not supposed to get caught up in like the little things, but what is the underlying issue here? And that's going to be different for all of you in terms of what the underlying hurt or the underlying pain, the underlying conflict really is. Okay, any last considerations or advice for group 1? Whoa. We have the garden, which I think goes very well with that imagery that I saw of like the well collecting water. But the garden always talks about, and look, we have the sun again at the bottom of the deck, bringing attention to. I think I just had this combination of cards in another reading, but I shuffled. But this is about bringing attention to an issue out of love, out of care, not because like, oh, I'm trying to cause an issue. That's another thing though. Perhaps you feel like bringing attention to an issue is somehow a negative thing, but really this is a sign of wanting to care for the garden that is this connection, this job, this relationship, right? You want to care for it, and therefore in order to care for it, we have to address whatever underlying issues there are. Okay, so this is just a reminder that caring comes in many forms. Caring and maintenance comes in many forms. Okay, we're going to get one last oracle card, and this one we're going to read from the booklet. Okay, one last card for group 1. Any advice or considerations for group 1? We have day and night. That is a number 1. Let's read it. It says, uncertainty, fear, worries, decisions to be made, and follow your instincts. I mean, even just the headline is everything we talked about. We have fear, following your instincts, and decisions to be made, as in like negotiations and judgment and seeing what is really worth, right? Picking your battles. Okay, this says, the girl we see on this card is holding the sun in her hands while the moon is at her back. She looks uncertain, as if she has a question in mind but does not know the answer. What is she thinking about? Is she afraid of the answer or the inward process to find it? Many of us struggle with making decisions, but where there is shadow, there is also light. After a dark night, there is always the light of the morning sun warming the path we have chosen. This card reminds us that we already hold all the answers in our hands. We should trust our inner judgment and know we will be able to handle any situation. Absolutely. That is a beautiful confirmation of this energy between the Judgment card, the High Priestess, the Strength card, and the Sun card that really combines them all into one. Especially like the idea of the sun rising after a dark night. The sun will rise. This is like the third time we get imagery of and with the sun in this reading. And so yes, the sun will rise. I'm not seeing you extremely stressed by this, but I am seeing that there's a need for you to address this in an authentic way so that it doesn't become something that grows into an undercurrent, right? That affects this job, that affects this relationship, that affects this connection any more than it has to. Okay? I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really hope that it resonates. If you would like to book a personal reading, you can do so on my website. That is linked below. I also just started offering natal chart readings. I have 30-minute first impression natal chart readings. If you've never gotten a natal chart reading, that's a great reading to kind of get like an overview of just kind of like a brief. Basically it's the first things that stand out to me. There's also a detailed natal chart reading. I'm also now offering live tarot sessions as well as live natal chart consultations. So many exciting updates. If you would like to check that out, you can see all of those offerings on my website. Other than that, I will see you here again a lot sooner than it took from the last reading. That was an extra long break. Typically, I try to do these weekly, okay? So I will see you here next week, and until then, take care. Hi Group 2, this is your reading if you chose these adorable tiny little flowers that are now all like, they've all gone to sleep because I plucked them from their life source. Sorry, but like I said, they were going to be destroyed anyway in a matter of 2 days. So I'd rather have all of us appreciate them while they're still around. They're so cute, but they're all like closed up now. So we're going to set that up here, and then we're going to get right into your reading. So we are trying to open ourselves to whatever you need to hear at this time. So what is a message that Group 2 needs to hear at this time? We're going to start off with one card that is going to be your current energy. For Group 2, did I just say Group 1? I apologize if I did. I'm very focused on you, Group 2. That was just a slip up, if indeed that happened. I'm not sure now. So for Group 2, what does Group 2 need to hear at this time? So this is your current energy. We have the 9 of Swords. Okay. So we're feeling a little anxious, right? We're feeling a little exhausted, mentally exhausted. It's an interesting card. I haven't really had this deck for a while now, but it always happens because I rotate so many different decks. It always happens that I'm like, oh, I haven't really engaged with this card in this deck. This is intense with that gargoyle. Oh my god, that's actually giving me like sleep paralysis demon. Sleep paralysis is the worst. So you might be having some sleepless nights, but you also might be having some really stressful nights. So you might be actually having some really stressful dreams at this time. Like you wake up and you're not rested at all. Hopefully you're not actually experiencing sleep paralysis because that is awful. But it could be that you wake up and your dreams, you might not even remember them, but you just kind of feel exhausted and it's like, oh my god, did I even sleep? But other than that, it could just be that there's a lot on your mind. What is the message that you need to hear at this time? What do you need to know? What do you need to hear? What do we need to talk about for Group 2? Oh, that is a lot. We're going to take just the top one. We have the 7 of Cups. Yeah, oof, you're dealing with a lot of confusion. Okay, I will take it. Fine. Okay, and then we have the Knight of Swords, and then we have the Queen of Swords. Wow, you are so in your head. It's okay though, because there is a progression here moving on to the Queen of Swords, and I like that because it means that we are getting some sense of control around this. And look at, we have the Fool. So I think we're going from a little bit of a defeatist energy towards, you know what, I'm going to tackle this. I'm going to make sense of this. I'm going to really figure this out. Let me show you close-ups because these cards are so intricate and I want to make sure you kind of get an idea of what's going on, because when they're a little bit further away it just looks like a lot of colors, right? This is the Seven of Cups. The Seven of Cups is definitely giving me this feeling that there's some kind of ideals that you're trying to live up to or that you're trying to enact. Whether that is ideals that are set in place by judgment of others or judgment that you yourself have upon yourself. It feels like there is really kind of a difficulty in sorting out your emotions, but there is a high expectation to have things figured out, but that expectation is very mental. And so what I do feel strongly, especially because we have the Queen of Swords and not the King of Swords here, I do want to say that it's really necessary for you to show yourself a little bit more grace. It's really necessary for you to have a little bit more acceptance for the rawness of life, right? There's definitely a lot of need for like control here. There's a lot of need for like, I need to understand why I'm feeling this way. And sometimes there are situations in life where we don't understand why we feel a certain kind of way. And sometimes emotions aren't always as, emotions, they typically make sense the longer you really let them be and let them unfold. They'll start making sense, but you cannot force them to make sense. You cannot, yeah, of course, there is psychoanalysis, there are psychologists, but you for yourself, it's like there is like this desire to think something over and over because eventually it will make sense, but you keep coming to the same answers. You keep coming to the same resolution, and there's something where it's like, this doesn't make sense, because you're not supposed to understand it. You're supposed to feel it and perhaps feel your way through it. And so there is coming through this energy. There is an energy of resolve at the end, and I don't mean resolve as in resolution, but resolve as in like, I don't know, I give up, but in a positive way. With this Fool card, the Fool card is actually one of the wisest cards, because the Fool does not get dragged down by the things he cannot control, and he does not get dragged down by the things that he does not know. The Fool lives in a state of acceptance and ignorance in a way that really helps him stay light-footed. And so this here is heavy-footed, and not in a grounded way, right? Not in an earth energy way, but in a air energy way where it's like, I need to figure this out. And so this keeps you really heavy-footed, but there is a progression here that I'm seeing that's going to keep you, that's kind of gonna lighten the load a little bit. So it does seem like there is some kind of recognition of, you know what, I cannot control the situation just by thinking about it. And so it's almost like we're driving our mental attention in a different direction. Instead of like, here we're going in cycles. Circles, cycles, and spiraling, right? It's like, I gotta figure this out, I gotta figure this out. And because of that, we keep going in the same direction. And here things take a turn and we're like, you know what? I'm gonna try a different direction, because obviously what I'm doing right now is not leading me to any more clarity. So there's this feeling of like, you know what? I'm gonna take a different direction. And that different direction, I do think, is taking us in a place that feels more empowered in what we do know, what we don't know. Okay. Tell me about the Seven of Cups. We have the Star card. Sorry for that moment of silence. I got kind of sidetracked because I just realized that this card says the stars. And I just wanted to make sure. I was like, wait, those numbers do indicate the star card though. But it's interesting how in the English translation it says the stars. In the German one, it's just a singular star, which is the star card. But it's interesting that it says the stars. For some reason, that's like, that pulled my entire attention. Because to me, I think that indicates, especially because we have the Seven of Cups, and the Seven of Cups is about having a lot of options to the point of overwhelm. And especially when it comes to cups, it's about having a lot of emotional options. Like there's so many paths that we could take, and that kind of stresses us out, right? There's so many like variables, and we're like, how am I ever going to figure this out when there's so many variables at play? And the fact that the star card came out, and I'm so zoned in on the fact that it says the stars, indicates to me that there are multiple ways to address this. There are multiple ways that will lead you towards relief, that will lead you towards healing. There is not one particular path that is the only path that will guide you towards healing. However, it is very evident that this has to do with trying to come to a place of healing and feeling like emotional relief. And so in that regard, I do think that this has to do with some kind of emotional scar or pain that you are trying to address from a very mental place. And unfortunately, that doesn't get us very far. It does help us at times feel empowered. It can help us feel knowledgeable about what we're experiencing, right? It can help us feel like we understand why we are triggered or why we're reacting a certain way. But that kind of analytical energy can only take us so far. At some point, we still just have to feel our feelings. We still just have to allow ourselves to go through a certain process so that we can go through the emotion, so we can eventually get closer to healing the emotion. We can't just think our way through it. Tell me about this Knight of Swords, although you're clearly finding a way because we still have so much swords here. Tell me about this Knight of Swords. Okay, we have the Four of Pentacles. And then tell me about this Queen of Swords. Oh. The Temperance card, yes. That is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to showing yourself more grace and bringing things more into balance from a feminine perspective. And that doesn't have anything to do with your gender expression. This is just feminine energy, where the Queen of Swords expresses herself much different than the masculine counterpart, the King of Swords, where the King of Swords is perhaps even more analytical and perhaps even more the King of Swords is more cutthroat in a way than the Queen of Swords, where the Queen of Swords is very much more so focused on balance and justice and such. Both of them very much in favor of justice, but the King of Swords is perhaps a little bit more ruthless in terms of the sacrifice that justice can require of us at times. And the Queen of Swords is a lot more, especially in this case, it just feels more considerate and more inclusive in a way. Specifically more considerate towards yourself and considerate towards your needs. And that coming out with the Temperance card is kind of like, okay, we're addressing something still from a very mental angle, but we're understanding. It's almost like this has like the energy of self-parenting, where here we're spiraling, and it can be really easy to spiral in like a bubble of anxiety that is fueled by very confusing emotions, right? But there comes a point where if there's nobody around us, we have to kind of hopefully find the strength to step in and self-parent and be like, okay, what do I need right now? What is going on? Like it's very different. It is still mental energy, but it is very different from this energy that we're experiencing here that has a lot to do with confusion. This is more so an energy that wants to take action for figuring out how to bring back balance into a situation. And that has to do with taking a pause, taking deep breaths, especially because this is air energy, taking deep breaths and analyzing what is going on. Not like what are my thoughts, just like letting them run rampant, but why am I thinking these thoughts? What do I need to do to free myself of these thoughts? This is much more in control and more graceful control. With this Four of Pentacles, underneath this Knight of Swords, it does feel like, let me give you a close-up of that. It does feel like there is something that we are holding on to with the Four of Pentacles, that we are holding on to that is not helpful. And I think the Temperance card coming out underneath the Queen of Swords is like this feeling of like there is something that I need to let go of in order to bring balance back. And especially with the Four of Pentacles, because the Pentacles are material, it can be something that is actually very real, right? That is very much present in your material world. So when it comes to like the sleepless nights or something, this could be something that you're holding on to, whether that is a job or whether that is a very real physical situation. So whether you're living with someone, there's something that is really affecting you, and you're recognizing that you cannot think hard enough to get a resolution to this. There needs to be some kind of action taken in order to address the way that you're feeling. It's like you can't just think it away. You can't just analyze it away. There has to be some kind of release in a very 3D, on a very 3D level. What is your energy at the end of this? We have the Five of Cups, yeah. There's something that you need to release. And it's the reason that you are struggling with this. We have the Two of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck. The reason that you're struggling with this is because you don't want to let it go. You don't want to release it. And that's why you're feeling so confused, because there's like a part of you that is already very emotionally like on board with, no, we need to let this go. And there's a part of you that just kind of is in denial. And so the real way to get to feeling more aligned again and feeling like you can really do this is by letting something go and knowing that there will be grief around having released this, but that there is still something to gain from releasing it. Because I think what you have to gain is more balance and more emotional balance specifically. There's a really difficult decision that you are putting off. And you're putting it off because you are refusing to really see things the way they are, which is kind of ironic because you're very mentally like on overdrive. But it's like you're doing like mental gymnastics, right? You're doing mental gymnastics to even justify why you're still holding on to this. And I don't know what it is, and it's going to be different for a lot of you, but this could have to do with some kind of relationship, some kind of job. This can have to do with lots of things, but there's something that we are emotionally holding on to. And to be honest, it doesn't even have to be in your life anymore. This could be an ex. This could be a job that this could be something that you're feeling bitter about, and and I don't mean bitter as with any kind of judgment attached, trust me. But it could be something where you're really having a difficult time accepting the reality of the loss. And in order to accept that, you really have to feel your way through it and recognize the mental gymnastics that you're going through in order to cling on to something that is costing you a lot more than it's giving you. And that's why we have this five of cups here. Something is costing you. Gripping onto something is costing you more than it's giving you. I'm having a quote come to mind, which is really, really a painful one, and I can't remember now who said it. But and I'm gonna butcher it too, but it's coming to mind. So it goes something along the lines of, everything I've ever let go has claw marks on it. The idea of like you're really gripping onto something to the point that when you do release it, it has very, it's been a struggle. Let's get some dice on this. Yep. The dice don't lie. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? See, I couldn't plan this better. This is the 8th house, which is the house of endings and transformations. This is Virgo energy, and this is the South Node. Virgo, extremely mental. South Node is an energy of what we need to release. We are struggling to come to accept the ending of something. And the thing about the 8th house is, yes, it is about endings, but endings are just transformations, right? And so we're struggling in this reading. It seems like we are struggling to accept the transformation of something. Whether that is the transformation of your home life, the transformation of your love life, the transformation of your career. Something is transforming and you are doing mental gymnastics to try and hold on to a past that is not your present. You're trying to hold on to something that has already dissolved, it seems like. If that's not quite the case, then it is something that emotionally is not serving you anymore. And so holding on to that is really just causing you a lot of distress, because your subconscious is like, we've already lost. So even your subconscious is like acting up in your sleep, or whether that is through confusing dreams, through panic attacks. There's something where your emotional body is like, babe, we need to focus on healing this, but we cannot get to the healing until you actually feel it and accept where you are right now. Oh, this is heavy. I'm so sorry you're going through that, but I also know that once you go through that, I mean, like I said, I'm happy that we have the Queen of Swords and the Temperance card here. I also know that once we do go through that, you will transform. Like, you will be able to gain something from this, which is the 2 cups that still stand after 3 of the 5 cups have been spilled, right? And specifically in this deck, it is the 5 of Cups is depicted through this very lovely scene of these 2 people having a meal together, and one of them is very much an elder person that is, you know, that person has probably experienced a lot of loss, and they're talking to a very young person, and it's kind of like, yeah, this person has already experienced a lot of loss of life, a lot of loss of ability, possibly friends, relationships, monetary status. Who knows what they have lost, what they have seen come and go within their life. And they're talking to this younger person that is like, you know, because when we're young, we think that everything is make or break. Everything is like, no, this is meant to be in my life forever. And the older we get, the more we recognize that no, some things are just around for a season, right? Okay, I have a new tarot deck that I got, that I treated myself to for my birthday, and it's a very beautiful deck, but it's also very intricate, and so I'm still getting used to it. So we are going to get just 3 cards to see what is something that group 2 needs to be reminded of. What does group 2 need to be reminded of? 3 cards, please. We have the 2 of Cups. We have the Fool, which we saw earlier at the bottom of the deck. This also came out in group 1. And then we have the 4 of Pentacles again. Very interesting though, because it's giving me a very different vibe here. It's giving me a very different vibe. So we have the 2 of Cups, the Fool card, and the 4 of Pentacles. Okay, I do feel like this could have a lot to do with a relationship, so that there may be the loss of a relationship, or if it's deeper than that, because trust me, it can be deeper than that, even if it expresses itself through career or a friendship or a relationship. The underlying cause, I think, has a lot to do with the reason that we're having a hard time giving this up is because we identified with it. We identified ourselves, like whether this is a relationship or a career, it's like, oh, this is who I am. This is part of who I am, right? This is what makes me me. What do you mean it's not part of my life anymore? What do you mean my present doesn't have this aspect anymore? And so the Fool card is really asking us to reinvent ourselves. And with this 4 of Pentacles, which is a very different vibe here, it is kind of indicating how there are certain things, certain cornerstones of yourself that you will never lose, even if they look different. Do you see that? There's like this very different looking being. I think it's like a dice head. And it's, even when things look very different, they're still you. Like, this has to do with integrating new possibilities for your life, integrating new possibilities for yourself, and being open to newness and being open to potential. Because there's something that you really identified as, or identified with, identified yourself with, and you're not losing that aspect of yourself. You're just growing into something different. That's the reminder here. Now let's get you some oracle cards. I just had like the very faint feeling in the back of my throat of a sneeze, and it like wouldn't come out. And I know that's kind of weird to share, but it does feel very on point with this energy, because that's what it feels like in terms of like denying yourself to really feel the feelings that are actually coming up. I don't know, somehow that felt really kind of aligned with that, of like, oh, there's a sneeze in the back of my throat, but I'm like, no, don't let it come out, you know? That suppression. But a sneeze happens for good reason, right? There's some kind of irritant, like my body wants to sneeze because it wants to get out some kind of irritant out of my nasal pathways. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but it does feel aligned with this message, because there's something that emotionally you're trying to cleanse out. You're trying to get it out of your system, but you're not quite allowing yourself to get it out of your system because you're holding on to it, because you're over identifying with that being part of yourself or your life. There's a refusal to that transformation. Any blind spots for group 2 that we need to be aware of? Any blind spots for group 2? Boop. No, don't fall. We have creative power. release your alchemical energy into the world. And I think it's interesting because this is like this, the woman here is pregnant. And so the ask here is to release your alchemical energy into the world. Imagine refusing to give birth because that's the thing, we're talking about ultimate transformation here, and there's like this refusal to accept something because it's like you're not ready to step into what this new version of your life would look or feel like. We also have renewal at the bottom of the deck, and it says regeneration begins with decay. That's exactly it. You are in the midst of like something has already fallen away, it feels to me, and you're just kind of refusing to feel the effect of that. And this is saying to let your feelings happen, to let things unfold, feel your way through it. Try not to suppress it, because you're just prolonging the outcome. Which, yes, there is grief involved, but there is also acceptance within that grief, right? It's kind of like going through the different stages of grief. If we hold on too long to that phase of denial, we never get to that final step of acceptance. Let's get you a moon card for group 2. Can we get a moon card for group 2? Oop, no! It fell to the ground. You know what's interesting? I shuffled it out of frame, but there was one card that almost flipped, and I saw it. Like it kind of flipped like this, and I saw it. And I felt like it didn't fully flip. It was nourishment. And then this is the card that came out and fell to the ground. It's hunger. So both of these are talking about sustenance, provisions. I don't know why that word came through. But there's almost this feeling of a refusal to... Okay, here's a storyline that I'm getting, but it's just a metaphor. But it's this idea of, imagine you are in some kind of relationship, some kind of connection where the two of you became very dependent on one another in a very literal sense. And I'm taking it back. Like, don't think about you're living in this timeline. Think about you're quite literally a caveman. Right? You're a caveman, cavewoman, doesn't matter. And there are two of you, and you become really dependent on one another. And you create a system where it works for you, right? And then someday something happens, and this other caveman, cavewoman, does not return. And you are sitting in your cave. I don't know why it has to be a cave, but I'm just trying to simplify it. But you are sitting in your cave and you're like, well, I'm just not going to accept that they're coming. They're coming any moment. They're coming. Yeah. And you just doing this mental gymnastics of like, no, they're going to change their mind. Like they got lost. They're coming. Like everything's fine. They're coming back. And then when they come back, we're going to go out and get some food. We're going to go out hunt, right? But I can't hunt alone. I have to wait for them. Like I just going through all of this mental, mental gymnastics just to justify why you will not provide for yourself just because you had gotten used to having someone that helped you provide. And I know that's an odd metaphor, but it really works whether this is a relationship or a work environment of like, no, this can't be it, right? You are getting hungry and you need nourishment. You cannot depend. And notice how the cards, I always just put them down intuitively, but notice how I actually covered one of these two girls, there were two girls. Something or someone has left your life whether they wanted to or not, doesn't even matter. But something or someone has left your life, and you are so holding on, creating this space for them to come back, creating this space for it to resolve itself. And in the meantime, you're expanding energy on holding this space when you really need to be taking care of yourself emotionally, and taking care of, how do I adjust my life now that it has changed? How do I move differently? I'm going to have to figure out a way to sustain myself emotionally, physically, all of the things. And that's where this temperance card comes into play. Taking care of yourself. Okay, let's see. We're going to get one archetype aspect. This is going to be an energy that you should embrace as you move through this. What is an energy that group 2 should embrace moving through this energy? What is an aspect that group 2 should embrace moving through this energy? Are you kidding me? This is the same card that came out for group 1. And I shuffled, and that came out from the middle of the deck. But I will not argue. I will take it. So we have the healer. It says, passion to serve others by repairing the body, mind, and spirit. Ability to help transform pain into healing. Well, no wonder it came out. That's exactly what we were talking about. And I will tell you that for group 1, I didn't read the card because I don't always read these, because it's not always, it's about the archetype. It's about the main structure of the archetype. It's not always about what the card says, but in this case, that's pretty spot on. Ability to help transform pain into healing. That's what we have to embrace here. Really allowing for that transformation to take place instead of refusing it, because when we refuse it, we refuse to accept the truth of the matter, the truth of the present moment, right? And we think, no, I don't want to accept it in case it changes. But I think we're beyond that point. Okay, now we are going to get one card from this deck. Any last considerations or advice for group 2? Any last considerations? We have 10. Yeah, Spirit is really asking you to take care of yourself. Don't, especially for some reason, I'm getting like this message around hunger and nourishment. Don't starve yourself. Specifically, I don't know why that's coming out that way, but whether it is emotionally, physically, don't starve yourself in an attempt to make something come back or resolve itself, especially because here again there's a lot of food imagery on this card. Don't starve yourself because you believe that being in pain is something that you can, okay, sorry, it's coming through. Don't starve yourself because you think that feeling physical pain can help you process emotional pain. I do think that you are experiencing physical pain. I think you're experiencing mental pain, but I think that those things could come better into balance and be resolved if you were to actually accept the emotional pain and fully work through that instead of just kind of pushing it aside. Okay. We are going to get one last oracle card, and that one is we're going to read that one from the booklet. Any last advice for group 2? Ooh, a long way home. Okay, that is 35. Journey, remembrances, experiences, and passage. It says, look at this little elephant on his journey through the skies. He lives in a huge balloon and has his castle with him. Lights guide the way while he slowly passes over the horizon. How long is his journey and when will it end? Will he drop anchor again or continue his travels? This card reflects how we pass through our lives. During our pilgrimage, we collect memories strong enough to fill a castle and light enough to buoy our voyage. Buoy. I think I said that right. But that's exactly it, right? Right now, you have your anchor set somewhere. You're like refusing to move on, to accept some kind of transformation. And I know the way that I'm saying it sounds really harsh. Maybe you are like a lot more aware of it than I'm making it sound, but still, I mean, the elephant is definitely a symbol of memories and remembrances, as this said. And this is really just about, let me say that again, during our pilgrimage, we collect memories strong enough to fill a castle and light enough to buoy our voyage. Meaning that this is meant to, the experiences stay with you. And again, this is what we got with this Four of Pentacles too, that there's something about you that's still like the cornerstones of who you are aren't changing, but there is a transformation to the expression of who you are because there is a loss of some sort that we have to process and fully accept. And we have to accept that that version of ourselves or that partner or that career has transformed, and that we need to lift up our anchor and allow change and movement to take place, because we have gathered all the experiences that we need from that point in time, and we need to accept that our present is asking us to move on. Because what happens if we leave this anchor, if we have this anchor down on the ground and the present keeps moving in the form of wind, you know, that really just kind of creates a lot of tension. And at some point or another, that tension is going to cause some form of destruction. So we really have to be more in that full energy and in that healing energy of like, okay, well, this is, I've gathered all the experiences that were meant for me at this point in time in this particular space. And now it is time to raise my anchor and see where life takes me next, what this transforms into. Very heavy energy, so I definitely understand the struggle with that, because trust me, I am a fixed sign and changes are difficult to accept. Transformations are difficult to accept, but this will definitely take you towards feeling more empowered again with that Queen of Swords, and with that Temperance card, feeling more balanced again, okay? That's where you're headed, and that's a big improvement from where you're at currently or most recently, okay? I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really hope that this resonates, that it was helpful, that it was constructive. If you would like to book a personal reading, you can do so on my website. The link for my website is in the description below. I also just started offering live readings as well as natal chart readings. So check out my new offerings. You can see them described on my website. Other than that, be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok so you can stay up to date with all of my new stuff coming. And yeah, thank you for hanging out, and I hope I get to read for you again sometime. And until then, take care. Hi Group 3, this is your reading if you chose this 3-leaf clover, which is huge. And now that it's been sitting for a while, it's very sad. It's like, wah, wah, wah. But it's still so cute. I might press it because it's so cute. So we're going to set this down right here, and then we're going to get right into your reading. So we are trying to receive a message that you need to hear today. We're going to see what comes up. What do we need to talk about? What is something that you need to hear today? First off, we're going to get your current energy. So for group 3, what is group 3's current vibe? What's your vibe? What's going on? We have the 5 of Swords. Okay. So we might be trying to make peace with some sort of conflict. We might be trying to make peace with some sort of changes. And we might be, tying up some loose ends around some situations that have been a little bit harsh. But let's see what's going on. What do you need to hear today? There's a message for group 3. We have the Sun. We have the Chariot. And we have the King of Swords. Interesting. Group 2 had the Queen of Swords in this position. And then we have the Knight of Rods. Okay, well, you're moving on from something. That is something that group 2 was struggling with, to be honest. Don't tell them I told you. But it seems like you are making peace with something. Like there was some kind of falling out. There was some kind of decision that had to be made. And the moment that that is done, you're like, okay, well, now let me focus on moving on. Feeling very empowered, feeling very kind of like ready to just leave things behind you. This feels a lot more grounded. I don't know if this is a reading. The other 2 were more so like, hey, this is what you're dealing with right now. It could be that this is kind of like an aspirational energy. Or if that's how you're feeling, then it's a confirmation of like, yeah, you're supposed to be done with that chapter. There's something that you definitely are leaving behind. You're leaving something behind and you're moving on, and you feel like you put thought into it and you're excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to see where this goes. This was so clear cut and very like much lighter than the other 2 readings. So we'll see. There could be a whammy coming in the bottom row. There could be some ways in which you're telling yourself, oh yeah, I'm fine. So we'll see what comes out. Context always matters. We have the Hermit coming out underneath the Sun. We have the Knight of Rods coming out again. And we have the Page of Cups, and the Page of Cups almost wanted to come out underneath the Sun as well, so I'm not surprised that it came out in the end. And then we have the World card. You are so done with something. You're like, okay, I've been there, done that. You're like, I'm good. I had my fair share. Huh. This is really interesting, though, with the Page of Cups underneath the King of Swords. I do feel like there's a layer here where you are very intent on like, yeah, I mean, that's fine, it's fine. We don't need to talk about that. But I'm a snoop, so I'm like, wait a minute. There has to be more to this. Give me just a minute to sit with this. So we have the 5 of Swords. Let me get your energy. We have the World card at the bottom of the deck, but what's your energy at the end of this? I will get to the bottom of this. What? Oof, see, I knew that there was something off. I knew it. Okay, we have the 7 of Swords at the bottom of the deck. Now, listen, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I am recognizing that I think you are trying to move on from something quite hastily. Like you're very, very determined to be like, I'm fine. Like it's, yeah, no, I made my mind up on that. But the fact that we have the Page of Cups underneath the King of Swords, which this is like putting up a front of like, oh yeah, I'm totally like, no, I totally am fine with that, how that fell out. Like, no, I'm good. I'm not worried. I'm not emotional at all. And then behind closed doors, it's like, I don't know if you've heard that TikTok audio where it's like Stewie from Family Guy, where he's like, all right, well, I'm gonna go to bed now. And then he's just like like quietly weeping. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to poke fun, but that's just what came to mind. Because yeah, look at this Ten of Swords. This Ten of Swords indicates that if we just kind of ignore the implications of this, if we just tell ourselves like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. Fine, thank you. Thanks for doing me a favor. You know, that's kind of like, I'm getting like this vibe of being in an argument with someone and someone being like, well, then maybe we shouldn't do this anymore. And you being very much like, oh, thanks. Yeah, you're doing me a favor. Yeah, totally. That's exactly what I wanted. And then trying to convince yourself that that is true, but honestly, kind of struggling to do so. And then in the end, having this energy of like, oh, why did I do that? My goodness. Especially with that Seven of Swords at the bottom of the deck, it indicates that this behavior of being like, oh, totally fine, I'm moving on, like it's totally cool, like I don't care, I really don't care. That is really a form of self-sabotage in some regard. I also want to point out that the only emotional energy that we have out on the table is the Page of Cups, which indicates that we're really kind of like a little bit disconnected from our emotions, like a little bit, you know, just kind of like a little naive when it comes to the depths of whatever this decision was. That we probably made this decision very much focused on our own decision or the way that we handled some sort of conflict, that we managed that in a way that was very much centered on how do I say this? I'm trying to not be mean. Because it came from a self-centered place almost, but not like, I'm not trying to make it sound like you were being selfish. Like it was very much with the Hermit and the Sun, it was just very much focused on like, well, what do I need in this situation? What I need is to get away from this. And so it was self-centered, but not saying that you are self-centered, but it was more so kind of like this impulsive reaction to, I'm just trying to get away from here. And now I'm hearing that Red Hot Chili Pepper song. Wait, but that's not get away. It's give it away, give it away, give it away now. I don't know why that came up. But it's this feeling of like wanting to leave the scene of a crime. Like trying to hop in your getaway car, quite literally with the chariot, and be like, I'm fine. I don't need to think about that at all. That didn't affect me at all. And it's funny that the King of Swords is coming out in can I just say, because nothing happens by coincidence, and I have been like, right now, I've been rubbing my eyes. I don't have anything on my face right now except for like sunscreen, and I just rubbed my eye, and I think I got a little bit of sunscreen in my eye. And so it's like bothering me, and so I keep rubbing it, and it's like tearing up. And I'm just like, no, it's fine, I'm just gonna talk through it. But it's like seriously bothering me. That is this energy. That is it. Like, just me, my eye is completely tearing up, and I'm like, oh, it's just that I have sunscreen in my eye. I'm really not trying to poke fun at you, but I do feel like you're the kind of person that's probably a little bit more blunt and a little bit more somewhat detached from your emotions. And so I feel like I'm pretty comfortable in not being super light-footed as I describe this. but also my eye is bothering me. But what I actually was trying to say with this King of Swords, the fact that it's coming out in the exact same position where in the previous reading we had the Queen of Swords, and for some reason during that reading I felt compelled to clarify the difference between the King of Swords and the Queen of Swords, and I was just saying how, you know, the King of Swords is a bit more ruthless. The King of Swords is a bit more cutthroat. And so now having that come out in the same position and having him look over at this conflict where this is your energy, and the Five of Swords has a lot to do with post-conflict being a victor and really kind of like getting away with something. And look at that smug smile right there, while these people are really like going through it. So it does indicate to me that there is like this feeling of protecting yourself, because that's the thing, like when I say self-centered with this energy right here, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Like, we are all inherently self-centered. We cannot live our lives from a place that is anything other than self-centered. It's not possible. Even when we pride ourselves in putting other people first, that we pride ourselves, right? It's a very natural thing to be self-centered. It's just that our society has passed judgment on that energy of being self-centered, and especially when it comes to any kind of situations after a conflict. This really just indicates that you are trying to move in your best interest, which is totally acceptable. And for people that typically struggle with that, we would praise that, right? We'd be like, yeah, you have to put yourself first. It just feels like you are actually kind of doing it quite swiftly in a way that made me immediately feel like, oh, you're just moving on from something. Like, that's kind of suspicious how clear it was, right? And then we get more of these cards, and I was like, oh, especially with that Seven of Swords at the bottom of the deck, it's like, oh, see, there it is. Like, I knew that there was something, there had to be something more. I do kind of want to get another card. Tell me about this Ten of Swords. Give me a little bit of a why, or what? The Knight of Pentacles. And we have the Ace of Cups at the bottom of the deck. This has to do, my eye is still bothering me. This has to do with some kind of either misplaced trust or feeling like, listen, I think there was some kind of conflict and you got really defensive. And I'm not saying it was your fault or it was their fault, but there was some kind of conflict and you got really defensive, and so you really pulled away. You really pulled away, but you pulled away not because of this conflict, but because of a history with conflicts that you have. And so there's some kind of issue around trust, and that trust was challenged, and immediately you kind of like bounce back like a rubber band. It's like, well, if that's what it is, then I'm out. Very much like, well, I'm out. Nope, I'm out. I gotta put me first. I'm out. And typically I would be all for that, but for some reason it feels a little bit reactionary, and I cannot begin to describe to you how irritated my eye is right now. And I know that that's happening for a reason. Because listen, when we get something in our eye, the main way for us to actually get it out of our eye is to cry, because that helps us clean the eye. But typically what we do out of reflexes is we start rubbing our eyes, which makes it worse. It just spreads it more. And that's what I'm getting here. I'm telling you, nothing ever happens by coincidence during or right before my readings. Any readings, not just my readings, any readings for that matter. This has to do with wanting to move away from something because your trust is like paper thin. Oh, and I feel like like even just the way I'm saying paper thin, like that feels like such an, to me, that feels very blunt. And so I do feel like you are a very blunt person. I feel like you, I'm getting like fire energy from you, not just because of the sun, but like definite, like a little bit detached from your emotions because there are unresolved hurts from the past. And so I'm just concerned that if this is how you react to this situation where it does feel like the other party involved, whether this is a work situation or within a relationship, it does feel like the other party involved is distressed. It doesn't feel like, but of course you know best what happened, but it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel like somebody was ultimately out to hurt you. It just feels like you already had a lot of active wounds, and the threat of a new wound was too much to handle. So you were like, I'm out. Like, it's not even 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. It's, you're thinking of a strike, you're out. Which is fine if that's where your boundaries are, if that's what you need. But my question to you would just be, is it warranted? Is it really warranted? Is there any room for conflict resolution here? Because to be honest, deep down, I think you want to. You are very much like, oh, no, I'm good. But there are these energies like the Hermit and the Page of Cups that indicate to me that there is a certain like subconscious desire to address like your inner needs, your inner desires to heal something, right? And not just something, but a lot of things. Let's roll some dice. We have the 5th house, we have Taurus, and we have the Moon. Again, I don't mean to laugh at you. I don't know why this energy is expressing itself very bluntly. But I don't mean to laugh, but that Taurus Moon energy is very much like, oh, no, yeah, I'm fine, whatever. But I know Taurus energy. Listen, I am intimately familiar with Taurus energy, and I love it for many reasons, and I hate it for a few. I don't hate it, but Taurus energy can have very dramatic expressions. And that's what I'm getting here. And Taurus energy is actually, even though, especially with this moon energy, right? So the emotional expression through Taurus can very much be such stubborn energy that one wrong mood, one wrong vibe, and a Taurus moon is like, no, I'm done, thank you. No, I don't want it anymore. No, you ruined my appetite. I don't want it. I'm not interested. Now, the 5th house does indicate that this could have to do with some form of creative expression, or it could have to do with romance. So this could have to do with some kind of romantic relationship where, you know, there was something gave you the ick. Something kind of turned you off, and you're just like, nah, I'm done. I don't want this. Take it away. I don't want it. I don't want to see it on my plate. My appetite has been ruined. But I think again that this is coming not from a place of that necessarily that connection having all these red flags or all of these harmful aspects to it, but you having dealt with too much bullshit in the past, and now your trust is paper thin, and now your hope, your your belief in something to be worth a little bit of friction, that is paper thin. Your belief that something could be worth a little bit of friction. I am still fascinated though by the Sun along with the Hermit card, because again, this doesn't, it does feel like very much being like, I'm very sure of what I need. I'm very sure of what I want. And that's not it. So don't let me sway you in any direction, because it does seem like you are very much intimately familiar with what you want and what you need. But I think the main thing that I want to point out is that your emotions get to have a say too. And don't project past pains onto current situations, because your emotional being wants to I feel like wants to be more open, wants to be more forgiving in some shape or form, wants to be more trusting, wants to be more experimental, especially with that fifth house energy. Like your emotional body is like, but can we? And your logical mind is like, no. That's that King of Swords. Your emotional body is like, oh, but I kind of like them. And your logical mind is like, no, I said no. Shut up. You don't make the decisions here. Oof. Yikes. That came through strong. Okay, let's get you a reminder. So this is a new tarot deck that I treated myself to for my birthday. It's a very beautiful deck, and I'm still kind of getting to know it, so it's been very interesting. We're going to get 3 cards on something that you need a reminder on. So for group 3, can we get a reminder for group 3? 3 cards, please. We have the 8 of Wands. We have the 6 of Wands. And one more. This has a lot to do with perception. You're like, you don't want to be perceived by someone. It's like, no, you think you can do that to me? I'll show you. Like, no, I will not be seen as someone who puts up with this in some way. And then we have the Hermit again. That's the second time. And listen, if that is in alignment, what you intuitively need, then absolutely, yes. Follow your intuition above all. But I'm just here to kind of give you a broader perspective, okay? And one thing that I do want to point out is on this Hermit card, we have these 2 snail-like hermits. And there's one very big and one very little. And I do feel like your logic is this big one and your emotional body is this little one. And it's like we have to address both of them. Okay, but the reminder here has to do with it's okay to be perceived as someone who desires things. Ooh. That's coming through with the 8 of Wands, desires, being perceived, and then authenticity with this Hermit card. And authenticity also in regards to being authentic with yourself, being honest with yourself, right? And being very aware, especially because there's these little lightning bugs. Are they called lightning bugs? I don't know. My logical brain doesn't work when I'm doing readings. But yeah, there's these lightning bugs. And then here we have these guys are holding sources of light in front of them, which is of course the imagery of the Hermit, of like holding a lantern in front of you. But here This figure is attached to a bunch of lightning bugs and her eyes are closed. Their eyes are closed too. All of their eyes are closed. Also, this deck is not completely in this color tone. It's just these cards line up very nicely with these colors. But there are different colors in that deck. And also, I don't think, not all of their eyes are closed, are they? No, they're not. So that is very interesting because it does indicate to me that we are closing our eyes towards something. And again, I feel like it is our emotions, especially because these two, the big one has their eyes closed and the little one, we can't see them, but it looks like they're looking at the big one. And it's like, can you listen to me, please? So yeah, it feels like the reminder is that it's okay to be perceived as desiring something, as wanting something. I just heard something and I don't want to say it because it sounds so mean. I don't want to say that it feels like you have a fragile ego, but it does feel like those are the words that I heard, fragile ego. But it does feel like there is some sensitivity around ego, which is why the sun came out first. There's some sensitivity around our ego, and I just wouldn't want you to let that get in the way of your expressing yourself emotionally or pursuing any kind of emotional draw, any kind of emotional I can't think of the word. Affection or emotional pull. Like, there's something where we're being very stubborn and telling ourselves like, no, I don't want that. But emotionally you do. You just don't want to be perceived as wanting it because there's some kind of sensitivity around your ego. Okay, let's keep this moving and see what else comes out with Oracle cards. Let's get one from this deck. Any blind spots that we need to address for group 3? I am going to take this, but I feel like there's another one that wants to come out. It says Spirit Self, be who you are as you are. And that I do feel like there's something where we're very aware of how we're being perceived and we don't want to be perceived as this, as being hurt. But in the process of doing so, we contribute to our own hurt in some way. That's why we're leaving the scene of the crime very quickly, because we're like, that didn't even affect me, didn't matter, didn't hurt me. What? Oh, I don't even think about them or that situation, like that didn't affect me. And I don't think that's true. I do think that this clearly, with this Ten of Swords, again, I don't think that the entirety of the impact of Ten of Swords is from this situation or from this current state. It's more so that things have been accumulating, things have been building up. And I do want to indicate that this Ten of Swords here as your energy, as an outcome, indicates that at least we're addressing it, right? We're getting to a point where it's like undeniable. Because that's, I think, something that we're focused on a lot here is denying impact of certain things. And we're getting to a point where it's like, oh no, it's undeniable. I have to be honest with myself. Be who you are as you are. And I also want to point out that, and this was a lesson that took me a while to learn, that being sensitive and strong are not mutually exclusive to one another. You can be sensitive and strong. And I feel like that might be an issue here for some of like, no, I can't be sensitive because I'm a strong person. You can be a strong person and still be sensitive. Give me one more. Radical self-love. This came out for group 1 as well. We can only receive love to the extent that we unconditionally love and live the truth of ourselves. The truth of ourselves. I think, again, be as you are, who you are. There's a part of you that I think desires certain things with that 8 of Wands and that Page of Cups, and you are not being fully honest about that because you don't want to be perceived as desiring these things. You don't want to be perceived as needing anyone else or any one thing. You're like, no, I can do it. That's why the Hermit comes out twice too. There's like this pride of like, no, I can do it myself. I don't need nobody. I don't need nobody. Yikes. And I say yikes again just because I'm like, ouch, the way that comes out is so blunt, and that's typically not me. But the energy is coming out very blunt because I think your energy, the way that you handle certain situations is very much like that. And so, we have to receive messages in the way that we're able to understand them and comprehend them. And I think if I said it in a more subtle way, it wouldn't land. But it's very uncomfortable to me because it feels like it's so harsh. So, of course, because this is a general reading, right? I'm talking to a spectrum of people. So if you're more on the sensitive spectrum, on the sensitive side of that spectrum, I'm sorry. If you're more on the blunt side and the like more rough and stubborn side of that spectrum, then I hope you're listening. Oh my goodness. Oh wait, I just skipped 2 decks. Let's get you a moon card for group 3. Can I get a moon card? Look at that, we have acceptance. And and we have the unexpected at the bottom of the deck. The thing about this card is that there's 2 hands from 2 different people. Acceptance is about allowing other energies in, accepting support, accepting love. You have a very can do by myself attitude. It's very like, I don't need anybody. And that's great to a certain extent, especially because we have this Page of Cups and we had, what else did we have that indicated, wait, there was another one. Well, the Hermit over here as well. There was another one though, that there are these energies that indicate we do want something, and it's okay to want something. It's okay to want something. That's coming through so strong. It's like I keep having to remind you it's okay to want something, and it's okay to be perceived as wanting or desiring something or someone. Doesn't make you weak because you wanted someone or something. Even though you don't need them, very clear with those Hermit cards, very clear that you are like, I'm fine on my own. I don't need nobody. I got that. I got the message loud and clear. However, there is a part of you that wants, and it's okay to let that part live and take that part into consideration when making decisions. Okay, what is an energy that group 3 should, an aspect that group 3 should embrace when moving through this energy? An aspect, oh, we have King. Enlightened, benevolent leadership, benefiting those in your charge. Benevolent. is important. A king doesn't just say like, oh, okay, well, I'm done here. You guys figure your shit out. I'll go figure my shit out and I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm sorry. You know what? That benevolent is very important because I just checked the bottom of the deck and we have God and it says benevolence and compassion. Benevolence. Benevolent for some reason is very important for you, like to embrace being more benevolent. What is the definition of benevolent? I mean, I know what it means, but let's look up the actual definition. I'm just curious. But I know that it means to like be kind towards others, or more considering, well-meaning and kindly. Well-meaning and kindly. Which also then, being benevolent is not just the energy that you give towards others, but also the energy that you therefore invite from others, which is expecting. That's why we had this issue with trust, right? It's expecting. By being benevolent, you extend trust to others and expect benevolence in return, instead of expecting another knife in the back, right? Another sword in the back. Enlightened, benevolent leadership, benefiting those in your charge. And especially benefiting those in your charge, this sounds like, oh, you have people that are like underneath you, like employees or such. But this can also just indicate that within friendships or any kind of connections, relationships, especially romantic relationships, you seem to be the more driving force. I mean, clearly those first 3 cards that came out were like you are a decision maker, you are a driving force. With the Sun card, the Chariot, and the King of Swords, you're like, let's do this, this, and this. And so you do have to take into account that when that is your energy and that is the energy that you bring into a connection, whether it is romantic or not, that there are certain responsibilities that come with that as well, right? When you are the more active driving force, when you are the force, the person within a connection that kind of demands to be the more active role. There are responsibilities that come with that, and part of that has to do with being benevolent and making sure that you are accounting for other people's desires and needs as well. Okay, now what deck is next? I forgot. Oh, that's because we're getting to the end. Okay. The deck that I was trying to skip to earlier. Okay, we are going to get some from this deck. This is going to be any last considerations or advice for group 3. Oh my goodness. Could you be any more dramatic? I'm sorry. Let's see. How are we going to do this? This is a whole stack. I feel like you're demanding enough to want to see them all. We have Secret. We have the Tower, which now that I see that, I remember that when we opened the deck earlier, the Tower came out. We have the Sun in Eclipse. We have Innate Knowledge. Why was I going to say Intimate? And then we have Portal. Now, that's a lot here. I do think that secretly, innate knowledge is again like a hermit vibe. You do not just open the door to anyone. And so then when you do, you are not very trusting and you are very kind of like you have high demands. And it's interesting because this is coming up in a way where I feel the need to be like, hey, we need to chill. When typically I would be all about this kind of energy. I would be like, yes, you should have high demands. Yes, you should. But it just seems like it's not so much that you're doing others a disservice. I think you're doing yourself a disservice by the way that you really kind of heavily rely on independence. This is like weaponized independence. Ooh. This is weaponized independence, because then at the smallest turn, at the smallest ick, you're very much like, I don't need you. I don't need you. And it's like, yes, we get that. Babe, we get that. You don't need anyone. But you want. And that's enough reason to try, because you want. And that's a great place to come from when you're entering some kind of romantic relationship or any kind of other like meaningful connection. Because yeah, you shouldn't depend on anyone, but you also shouldn't deny your own wants out of a fear for appearing needy, right? Because there is like the Secret and Tower and Sun and Eclipse is indicating that there is like this moment of like emotional turmoil that we are keeping very much secret, right? This Ten of Swords, that we are like really kind of hurt, and we're just like, no, I'm not going to show. I'm not going to let them know. I'm not going to let anyone know whatever effect they have on me. But you also know that that's not going to get you far, that you're just staying outside of this door. You're not letting anyone in, and you're not going out, right? You're just sitting by the door. Oof, I am sorry. This is a tough love one. This is a tough love one, but honestly, I feel like you can take it. I know that you can. But this definitely is a tough love one, because it's like you are not doing yourself any favors by weaponizing your independence against other people. Oof, this is actually kind of giving me a headache, to be honest. Okay, we're going to pull one last oracle card, and this one we're going to read from the booklet. Benevolence. Just wanted to point that out again, because this king energy was the energy that we're supposed to embrace, right? And so we have the King of Swords, but the energy that you're supposed to embrace most is being a benevolent king, a king that rules in a way that, again, I think you're a very dominant person in general in connections or at work, but ruling in a way that takes everyone's best interests into account, which also means the other person, yourself, but also not just yourself like on a public scale, but also your emotional wants, right? Not just your needs. Any last advice for group 3? We have the Perfect Fitting Key, which, if you are here regularly, you know that this is a very, very significant card for my collective. We also have Change of Seasons, because after the 10 of Swords, we're done with that, right? We're like, you know what? I'm done feeling this way. So there is change ultimately headed your way. But it comes through you accepting that you have desires, ultimately. Okay. But 29, happiness, encouragement, and unlock feelings. This card comes out so much, more than any other card in this deck for my collective. This card says, this card shows a woman holding a key in one hand and a cage with a heart in the other. There is a bird sitting on the woman's shoulder, encouraging her to try different keys with his mouth. Yet the woman has already found the perfect fitting key. She can open the cage and open her heart. Sometimes life is only a search for the right key. There are so many things that are hard for us to approach. We can have trouble accessing our own feelings. Thanks to friends and family, there are people who can help us find the lost keys to our personal happiness. So I think that touches very nicely on what we were talking about, because it's like she already has the key to this heart, the desire that is locked away, right? Out of fear of being perceived of someone who has desires. When you pride yourself in some regard on being very independent and not needing anything. I will say it again. I'm going to say it until you're sick of it. You may not need anything or anyone, but you want, and it's okay to want. And it's okay to make that want and that desire known, and to let people know, hey, the way things ended, the way things are going in this conflict, hey, the way we ended things last night, I don't know what the heck happened, but you know what, that hurt me. And it's okay. Like, you don't have to rush away from the scene of the crime and then just pretend like you're totally fine because you don't need anyone. We know you don't need anyone. But it's easy to be hurt by people that we are in connection with. And if you just ignore it and be like, no, that didn't hurt, that's how you end up here. That's how you end up in this space of like, ouch. It's adding up. What is it? Death by 1,000 pricks? I don't think that's it, but that sounds funny. Because isn't that relatable? What is that? Death by 1,000. I think that's a Taylor Swift song too, right? Death by 1,000. You tell me what it is. I don't know what it is, but it definitely, I can see that it's been adding up because we've been pretending like it doesn't hurt. And before you know it, you're bleeding out. So please address the hurt, not just by running from it, and address your desires. Okay? I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really hope that this resonated and that it was helpful and constructive. If you would like to book a personal reading, you can do so on my website. It is linked in the description below. Also, I am now offering natal chart readings. We're offering live tarot readings, as well as live natal chart consultations. Very exciting new services. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, so finally getting around to adding that and structuring my schedule in a way that allows this. And so if you want to learn more about your natal chart, feel free to book that. I'm really loving getting into these with you guys. Other than that, yeah, thanks for hanging out. I hope I get to read for you again sometime. Until then, take care.